can't even see who's here.
Any volunteers?
Who's here? How many people are here?
We have about 27 people here. Gore, do you want to take notes?
Somebody has a piece of paper.
Right. Eric?
No one else talk but me and
Okay,
Oscar.
I'll take notes. I'll just talk.
Great, thank you so much. Cool. Are we live on YouTube yet?
I'm having some issues with YouTube, but I recorded it and I'm working on getting it started right now. So if anything, we can upload the video later if I'm still running into some issues.
Gotcha.
Can you share the notes document in the Zoom's chat room?
Yeah, it's there.
Okay. In the Zoom?
Yeah, Zoom group chat.
Okay, I don't see it.
And in the status core devs channel.
Oh yeah, I see the notes here. Core devs agenda. Cool. Let's see. Cool.
All right, cool. So yeah, thank you, and welcome to the 15th Core Dev call. Let's start with some very brief SWAM updates, if there's anything that hasn't been mentioned in the last town hall that you think other people should know about. And then we can talk briefly about partition Whisper topic compatibility, status quo as a Nix package, briefly on Chaos Unicorn, quickly follow up with better pull request process that we had a call a month or so ago. And then if there are any announcements. Before we get started, is there anything else people would like to talk about? All right, cool. So let's start with the small updates. So only if there's anything new that hasn't been mentioned last tunnel. Sticker market.
Yeah, pretty much nothing on the sticker market front, where we are almost done, just waiting for contract audit, so not much on the development side.
Update for the audit that is going to be waiting on the coordination with Trail of Bits, which is starting this week. We've been meeting with them this week, and I'm hoping for it tomorrow. And then they've already looked at that audit matrix that I set up that looks at all the functionality and understand that Attributed Talk and Sticker Market are the first on the list.
All right, Attributed Talk.
Yeah, the contract was updated so that it can be deprecated in the future. And the message, personalized message for Attributed Talk has been replaced by a hash for IPFS, so that instead of just having a message, you can have a bunch of metadata, including the message, and store it on IPFS. And yeah, that's it for Attributed Talk.
Dapsor.
Hey, real quick, just the market. I want to ask. There were a couple changes that were happening with regards to the contract. Are those done, or are they still in progress?
Right. So Ricardo did like a very simple change, and it's done as far as I know. So yeah, it should be already in the repo now.
But what about the changes to controlling the package? You were still discussing.
Right. So that's a change that Ricardo did recently. I think he sent an email like last Friday or Thursday. I don't remember, and I understand he did it.
Okay.
All right, Dapster. Okay. Telenetwork.
So we're trying to put that DApp in Rinkeby, and we debugging some deployment issues that are happening, namely with some caching issues that DApp is having on the client side. We fixed this issue with the SNT token that we found. We did a lot of small fixes here and there, and because the goal right now is to get it working 100% in Rinkeby.
All right. Network instrumentalization.
So yeah, basically the goal for this week's is to make a kind of end-to-end very simple proof of concept version of so essentially the whole sort of flow from running a mail server in our case right now as a status node and registering it for now while it's some sort of a closed beta, and then using it in the app. So essentially to have this flow of no incentivization, but at least the flow of you run your custom node and you can use it in status in a more or less convenient way. This side of it, and we started with a contract that actually Andrea started, and we have a help from Ricardo as a mentor, essentially on this. On this one. Yeah, that's it, and then we'll work. So right now the contract part is, it's even deployed, but we'll work on status go and status react to actually integrate with this contract. As a next step, and then we'll do some implementation some probably stub implementation of subscription just to have some UX feedback from it. That's it.
All right, cool. Token economics. There was a great presentation at last time also, probably not in the new updates, I would guess. All right, core improvements is oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Barry.
I wasn't prepared to kind of present anything, especially since I kind of monopolized last week's call. But there is still a lot of ongoing work, and there's new notebooks. I would just stress that I would have teams continue to think about sort of, well, one on a broad level, what's the probability? What are the factors that influence the probability of a project failing, and then just about your own specific drivers of value. And we're thinking about maybe starting to publish some of our research maybe as blog posts to try to get broader feedback outside of status.
Awesome. Core improvements, is there anything outside of Chaos Unicorn preparation?
Yeah, it was 1.11.0 release testing and things, and we actually decided that after the discussion was to have a no-go for the current implementation of topic partitioning. We'll discuss it later, but yeah, that's just for the information. So we will not enable it in 0.11.0. That's all from me.
Cool, right. I can do protocol briefly. I don't think I mentioned something. So we had this panel in FCC a few weeks ago, and that sort of work is ongoing. The sort of more long-term mixed-net kind of based approach, and we are trying to collaborate with some more groups of people and so on. And we're going to have a call similar to the Ethereum 2.0 calls, so similar to this call. The first one is going to be tomorrow, and then we'll have it every other week. We'll see how that goes. And then there's been, some of you have seen, sort of a data synchronization research log I started a week or two ago, with the goal of sort of taking a step back and looking at sort of existing literature when it comes to data replication and so on, to sort of see all the various alternatives and try to categorize them and understand the trade-offs more in a better way. So I'll keep working on that and getting a better sort of comparison, and then see what comes out of that. And then once sort of there's a better understanding of that, then resume proof of concepts and figure out the plan for getting it into the app. I don't know if anyone has any comments or thoughts on that, either here or we can do it in private. All right, cool. Dao?
So liquid funding, there's that initial, there's the project page that's basically done where a project can be displayed sort of in a more Kickstarter-like format. And now there's a an actual checkout for the back this project completed. I think maybe perhaps a stretch goal to try for it is to create a page that would easily allow someone to create their own project page, not just view one and back one, maybe in time for build week, and we might be able to dog food it by different people and teams inside of Status during build week uploading their project to using liquid funding. So that's sort of a stretch goal. We'll see if we can get that built in this next week or not.
All right. Anything from core, browser, or chat? Anything from desktop, wallet, or keycard?
I can make a small update for chat, what we've done that concerns all other teams. So there is the typography component that has been implemented. So from now on, it's better to use this instead of font type and font size and all these font-related parameters when implementing CSS, unless it's a very specific component that doesn't have a known typography. But basically, all the typography available in Figma are usable through the typography attribute in CSS. And the other thing is that soon we will merge a PR that introduce system tags, which is now the preferred way for adding information to contacts, like is the contact blocked or added, or contact request has been received, that kind of stuff. And that's all from me.
I can say a few words for the browser team. I was muted before. So yeah, because we are mostly done with Sticker Market, now we take this opportunity to push a bit more extension. And the short-term goal is to have extension out of alpha, so not behind the flag and usable directly. So that means mostly nailing error handling and the permission mechanism. And also we plan to push like a little bit the developer experience just to make sure it's easier to create extension. So if you have any kind of an opinion or ideas around how to handle permission or error handling, I'm interested in your feedback.
I'm curious, is there any plan or research around making extensions so you could use it in a sort of in a different environment, whether that would be like some JavaScript API, or I don't know what it would look like, but making it so it could be implemented in other clients where ClojureScript is not sort of a first-class citizen?
So it's not like a target we have short term, but it's definitely something we keep in mind. So just to make sure that we don't introduce feature that would make this more complex. So I think that there's nothing that prevents implementing the runtime in different languages, because well, yeah, it's mostly data and then semantic applied to this data, and there is no hard dependency on JavaScript, for instance, as of now. So yeah, definitely something that we keep in mind.
It's also worth plugging that Julian did a Swarm write-up for this next phase of extensions to kind of lay out some of the short-term, which is in the Swarm folder.
Awesome. Anything from Wallet or Keycard?
Yeah, for Keycard, we're still finishing the Android integration MVP. Last week, we still had to work on the dApps transaction signing. Also, Geth integration is almost done. Andrea is helping Guillaume Baillet from Ethereum team to finish that, and it's progressing very well. And we are getting in a research phase to allow point-of-sale use cases within dApps through either payment, through QR codes or with Keycard. And there's been a brainstorming about that last week that I'll post right there if you want to comment. And about the wallet, Goran, are you here?
Yeah. Regarding the wallet, we are reprioritizing. Basically, we'll push smaller incremental UX improvements for the wallet side. Some of them required for the point of sale addition. Some of them outlined by Kerry previously. Yeah, so that's pretty much it on the wallet side. UX improvements coming up. Also fixes. Yeah.
Cool. Anything from QA or janitors? All right.
Go
ahead.
Muted. From QA, mostly testing for like PRs for mobile application, mostly for Chaos Unicorn Day and for the future release. So fixes for release blockers. There is pending iOS test automation. Pending means we are waiting for South Labs support to find out the reason why it takes so long to start application and only hours. So it's like almost a week or even 2 weeks that we are waiting for them. What else? Yeah, that's basically it.
Right. Embark or Nimbus?
Embark, we did a small release last week, I guess, and we released a new website.
Cool. Did I miss any group of people?
Maybe from design side, Oscar.
Oh yeah.
No questions. A request. We are looking for a designer to join the team as Dennis is leaving. So if you know any designers, yeah, please do let us know so we can reach out to them.
Great. Thank you. All right, cool. So with that, let's move into the first topic. So this one is about Whisper topics and the partitioning of them, and some questions around sort of compatibility and so on. Who wants to give a brief summary of where we're at with that and so on? Igor,
well,
Andrea, maybe?
I can do this. So basically, long story short, it used to be that the decision was made like way back when to use a single Whisper topic for all the one-to-one messages and all the group chats, because they are based on one-to-one messages. And essentially, the issue with that, it's great for privacy because, yeah, each node is downloading each other node's traffic, which is good because you can figure out who's talking to whom. But the bad is, yeah, because each node is downloading each node's traffic. So, and I don't know, we had this outage of the Hong Kong mail servers a while ago. And before that, we had an issue with traffic draining on East Berlin, I guess it was. So it was all started roughly at East Berlin when we looked at this issue. And then, yeah, essentially we figured out that it's right now with our current user base, it's around, like on a normal day, it's around 100 megabytes of private messages per day, and each one has to download everything. And that means that when we release, if we will have like 10 times more users, it will means that each one will have to download a gigabyte of traffic per day just for private messages, which doesn't look like a good idea. So we decided that we will need to somehow like target this. And one of the idea was, like, again, it was a while ago, it was summer-ish PR from, I don't remember who was it, like Roman or Andrea. There was a PR with, I guess, Andrea, the first PR.
Andrea.
Yeah, it was the first PR of like actually using the partition topic instead of, like, essentially each person will have a personalized list of topics he listened to based on his public key in some way. And then this PR wasn't it got some critique, I would say, and then it was like stopped and closed. And then after this issue with mail servers, that was in December, I guess, then we decided to reevaluate this. And I created a post on Discuss about what's, do we want privacy or do we want like an efficiency out of traffic? And then this post didn't get any attention, almost at all. And I guess only Ricardo, Adam, and Andrea were participating there, more or less. And then, yeah, essentially we just figured out there, we came to some kind of consensus how we want to build this partition topic. So without, like, we tried to tell everyone about it, but again, it was mostly ignored. And then, yeah, we decided to actually split this topic, went ahead, and then we decided to split this into multiple releases. So the first release would essentially listen to this split topic and also to the old topic, but never sent anything to it. And then the next major release, which was supposed to be this one, supposed to start writing on it. And then we also try to coordinate the comms so that the old version 0933 won't be able to receive like one-to-one messages from the newest one, 0110. So that's what we did. And then, yeah, essentially I wrote a post about postmortem about why we did it. And then we got this feedback as well about the current implementation of partition topic isn't, I mean, it's not like bad, but it's not the simplest one, and it's not the simplest one to re-implement in other languages than JavaScript or ClojureScript or anything that's compiled to JavaScript. So we decided that we'll postpone this partition topic, and yeah, we'll essentially change the algorithm. We'll still do this, and it will still be a breaking change that we'll probably try to split across multiple releases. So it's not like just one release won't be able to talk to another, but like a release will be able to talk to one or two releases before that. But we'll do it in a more, I would say, re-implementation friendly way, because yeah, it's a bit of a root decision, and it's a little bit tricky to actually change it without breaking the backward compatibility, especially if you don't have your nodes always online. So that's roughly it. So yeah.
So I have a question on the backwards compatibility aspect, which is, like, I was saying, we don't think there's any way we could maintain backwards compatibility, even though we have multiple devices on. Like, is there, because you could imagine that you still have support sending of a discovery topic, but once you discover another device is using this other topic, then you would use that. Is that something like that not feasible at all?
I mean, we thought that essentially the trade-off of implementing this, that this kind of appeal will be worse than the than the disease it occurs.
It's also like an issue because so that works as long as we use the same technique we try to make a group chat to a different topic, and straight away we got an issue that because it's not like if anyone has got a device with an older release, that like that device won't be receiving any more messages. So it only works as long as the user has all the device up to the current release, and like that might not be the case, especially with desktop where the last release was 0.9 whatever, and and any new device, we don't do device to device. It's really multicast to public key, so we don't know which version are they running. And so we could do that. It would mitigate, obviously the breaking change, but it would not. We still have the same problems.
I would say that it would be worse because then we'll have these bugs or quote unquote bugs when there is one like version that doesn't work and one does work for the same account of the same user, and it's much harder to communicate this.
Than debugging,
and it's much harder to communicate because right now we can just tell that, okay, if you have version that starts with 0.9, please upgrade it, right? But if you don't do this and try to, it will be much harder to coordinate this thing. And it will mitigate it somehow. And of course, this breaking chain is not that bad because A, we are in beta, and B, we can revoke builds on iOS and Android. It's much worse on desktop, of course, but it's far from being released. So our plan was essentially as soon as we release this incompatible change, then the old versions will be expired in both TestFlight and Google Play. So for those who installed these versions, they won't be able even to use them anyway. So it's sort of a mitigation, well, a bad one. And then I wanted to ask as well, since we probably will have to break this, like we wanted to delay it for the better algorithm for partitioning topic, for a simpler one and the one that it's easier to implement in other languages than JavaScript. The question is there anything else? If we are still breaking the compatibility, is there anything else that we know that might require breaking compatibility because we might want to just bundle a few things together and fix them as the same package?
So there is some handshake in this private messaging communication. If there is, couldn't be this handshake informing that the client is using this new protocol of partitioned topics, and if they don't communicate this handshake, it just considers that it uses the old generic topic. Wouldn't be that possible? And also,
it works well when both devices are always online, and if you have mobile communication when you are mostly offline, it's you don't have handshakes directly to the one who you talking to. You just throw messages into the network, and sort of that's it. And then the other person might be online and receive them, or it might not be online, and then mail server receive it.
Okay, but we could have like some additional message then, like a protocol message that is sent using the old topic, and this could inform these new clients to use this, because then if you are a new client and you see that you are receiving a message in the old system, maybe you could ask them. I know that this could not be the best thing.
But if you're still listening to the old one, you're wasting your data. Because then migrating.
Yeah, that's the point of migration, right? To not waste the data. And the second, it doesn't solve the issue when you have one, like you have two versions, let's say the desktop that already supports it, and then the mobile that doesn't, and they have the same key, and we don't have a client information. We just know that, we sent something to a public key, and this public key might be like 5 devices with different versions. So which versions will you choose?
I think there's 2 points, right? Like one is like why we would want to have compatibility at all, and I think this is a great opportunity to practice it and get better at it, and like sort of figure out the testing and the scaffolding we need to make sure that we can sort of stay compatible, because it will only get harder as we move along. And then the second point on like how, like we do have some information about device syncing, like which device you're syncing with. So it doesn't seem like, I understand it would require some additional work, but it doesn't seem like it's impossible, even though it's multi-cost based and so on, because we still have device information. And then on Eric's point with respect to the amount of data, it wouldn't actually, because if most people upgrade, then it would be equivalent to another topic.
But how do you, where do we have the device information actually?
When you sync, you'd sync devices, right?
So you do have that information, but the one-to-one chats don't rely on that. So like group chats do. So for example, group chat, it would be easy to do that, because essentially you can just do that because it's the device to device communication. Well, really like one-to-one, they're not at the moment. So
maybe that's a problem with how one-on-one. I mean, shouldn't it be the same essentially? Like, why is there necessarily a difference?
Oh, just because like we haven't gone live with PFS for one-to-one, while group chats are using it.
So regarding the waiting more for this feature, I think it's a smart move, because we should probably discuss better. So I remember this discussion was like when the first problems arose, I actually commented on it, some ideas on how to solve. And actually, I think it's just the same thing, but I maybe got some details wrong. But I wanted to participate in your discussions about this, and to see what we can do, like to have a better solution. So I think everyone that have the interest can collaborate on this, because these problems can be solved with a lot of creativity, and just as always.
I think it's just so simple. Sorry, like once you have device-to-device communications, of course, like the method that we mentioned, it's possible. So that it's trivial. It's just like at the moment we're literally on top of Whisper. Whisper does not have this multicast. You send to a public key. Anyone with that public key, can, essentially decrypt the thing. So there's no way you can do it with Whisper, because anyone can spin up a version of the previous version of the app, and then you're going to miss that message.
So I want to for a second go back to the point that Igor made, that we can be happy that we can force users to upgrade. This is actually kind of the problem. Every time we force the users to upgrade, that's a coercion avenue. That is how vulnerabilities get introduced involuntarily for users. Basically, if you want to get an update out to users, that's how you do it. You sort of masquerade it as a protocol upgrade or whatever, right? It's a very classical thing. Like Skype does it when they became centralized and so on, and everybody just happily accepts, right? So we should be a little bit careful about being too happy about the fact that we can force, for example, iOS users to upgrade. In fact, I think we should be creatively looking for ways to make sure that is not possible.
Yeah, and I'm happy to discuss the possible solutions right now, because so far one of the I think pretty valid critiques that Andrea points at, and I totally back, is that people tell that, okay, please don't do this, and there is no essentially dialogue about, oh, there is another possibility, and it's very easy to just tell, okay, never break compatibility. So what are we going to do then? So we have this protocol thingy that is relies on, it's obviously first an abstraction link, because we shouldn't use Whisper topics directly in our protocol period, but that's another topic on this. So we have this very root decision that was made for, Eric recently wrote, for probably a reliability reason. So, and that's, yeah, and we don't really have devices online all the time. So what are the good solutions? How others usually decide this in mostly asynchronous communication?
I think the first lesson here would be that every time a protocol is designed, you need to think about the upgrade path ahead of time. To provide one that makes your life so much easier. And I think that's a little bit Oscar's point, that we need to practice switching protocols somehow. And the classic way of doing that is designing the protocol in such a way that it can be upgraded, right? So if we are introducing this breaking change, I think maybe a criteria for it would be that we also see a path to upgrade to the next one after that.
Well,
like then we could claim that this was like the last breaking upgrade that we do or whatever, right? But that's the kind of takeaway that I would love to see from any.
Well, the way to
postmodern.
I just wanted to say that there might be a way to do it without breaking change if Oscar's assumption is right, that over time the discovery channel will be less overused as people upgrade. So then we could just revert to what the protocol was initially doing, which is use the discovery topic only for contact requests, and then switch to a random topic after the first reply. And then there is much less traffic in the discovery topic, and that doesn't require an upgrade for a breaking change.
I think all these solutions have always the same issue. At the moment, the way we do multi-device support, which is basically relying on a public key, you don't have the same problem. So you're really either relying on some state, i.e. the random topic being received, or you're going to miss messages. If you have one device that upgrade to the random topic, you add a new device, the other user will not know, and it's going to send a topic. It's going to send a message. It's going to send it to the random topic. The other device that has no synchronized state will not receive it. Of course, you can have device syncing that will help, but again, let's not call it not a breaking change, because it will be, essentially.
I agree with what Eric said about using this common topic as a handshake only topic for the new protocol. And then the older versions would ignore these messages because they would not understand them. But they would then use this older topic for everything. And if somehow the mail server could filter the messages by size, we could make the new clients only search for ask for a message in that topic that are smaller than a certain size, because maybe this handshake message would have kind of the same size and probably would be smaller. Then you don't need to download everything. I don't know if that's possible, but
all Whisper messages are the same size, just because privacy. They are either of this certain size because of the content, or there is a padding that is added to make all the messages roughly the same size. So no, it won't work.
So Andrea, you were mentioning the difference between group chat and one-on-one chat. What do you see as the path to making one-on-one chat more like group chat, which it kind of is, like it's a set of devices?
Yeah, so like that to me, we should just the fundamental problem is that we use that system for device, for multicasting. So anyone with a public key will be able to, basically, no matter what client is using, no matter which version, is able to decode those messages. And that's really is not upgradable, essentially, because, because of it's embedded in Whisper. So, essentially, if you want to move to device, basically sending, it's going to come at a cost, of course, because it means that, if someone, it's the same as with group chat. So it's essentially now, if you in group chat, if you create a new device and you don't sync it, and you are in a conversation with another group chat, you won't receive those messages. And so what we did is, like, there are techniques so that that information is propagated, but that information, which is similar to protocol negotiation, but that information needs to be propagated essentially. So there is the possibility of missing messages because you just spin up your device. And so, like, okay, we're going to move. One way to do it is to move more towards device-to-device communication rather than this multicast by public key. And in that case, yes, you gain protocol.
So I agree. So I agree. There would be there might be some edge cases where if you don't look at you recover an account with an old version and you haven't synced with a device and you do this like several months after. Yeah, there might be some edge cases. I think that going forward, like having something like Whisper Topic as a kind of transport property, such that we think instead about it in terms of syncing between devices. That means it shouldn't matter for upgradability if we change out Whisper or whatever, because that's not actually what we. It's just one form of transport. There are multiple forms of transport. So I think if we have that, then we have device abstraction, then we can have sort of a path to upgrade, graceful upgrades in the future.
Yeah, that would certainly help. It would be a bit more sheltered from these problems, essentially. Because now the problem is that we're too close to the transport layer, essentially.
I have a question. Is the topic part of the encrypt? Is the topic information part of the encrypted message? I mean, if you take a message and you change the topic and put it back, is it still going to work to decrypt it? Because then we could use
it's signed but not encrypted. So...
Because then we could we simply have used the old mail servers, the one that are already hard coded in the oldest devices, as like legacy mail servers, and we make a new fleet, and this fleet would take all messages from the new devices, new topics, and put it all in Discovery topic, so that like the old devices will have everything in Discovery topic, so they won't miss anything. But I mean,
I guess the signatures won't match, but we can give it a shot and check. It probably is signed with the topic, and I don't know how Whisper will. It probably will just reject envelopes with if you tamper the topic. But we can take a look, because it's actually a solution, if that's possible.
Yeah, the other one would be to allow, because right now you cannot send a message if you don't listen to a topic, but we could do we could allow it for this topic and just drop a copy of the message on that topic and never listen to it. We could effectively ignore it because then anyway.
There was another point, I think it was a good point that was brought up, which is the lack of engagement. Just personally speaking, I think that partitioning topics is like a great way to optimize the bandwidth, and it's a reasonable thing to do, and it seems like something that generally could be done as a sort of local form of decision making within a swarm. I think the concern might be when it comes to something that breaks the protocol, so that impacts sort of more groups of people, and I think if that is made more clear, or if we want to separate out all of this and have it be a sort of different cultural process and different technical process, where we're changing the protocol and we need some form of consensus, perhaps in these calls, perhaps in some other form. That's something we're going to work on over the next few weeks and months to sort of, we have some haphazard documentation, but bring it more together, and also created this specs repository. And then maybe when we have questions like these, then we can bring them up in the CoreDev call as of come prepared with a proposal for changing the protocol in some way, and then we can discuss it. I think that would separate out the things that are sort of swarm implementation specifics for certain trade-offs versus things that impact the entire protocol. I don't know if people have any thoughts on that.
I think that's a good idea in general. So we should probably do it in some form, at least.
I don't have a thought, but I'm wondering, so how do we make this decision whether we accept breaking the protocol or not? How do we consider?
Yeah, so we'll have to figure out. I think that for those who've been here for a bit like a year and a half, we had this swarm process, and something like this, but in a way like similar to the Python improvement process or BitTorrent improvement or Bitcoin or EIPs or whatever. And essentially having a process like that where there's some form of consensus among some sort of core contributors or whatever it looks like. And that will also be its own sort of SIP or whatever you want to call it. At least that's how I'm thinking about it right now. And I think that's a pretty scalable and tested process for sort of protocol changes in general and something that's generally used. So that's how I imagine it. Specifically how decisions will be made or when something will move from draft to solid is something we can discuss further.
So it would also be possible to option to the users to opt in this, and once the other protocol is not used anymore. But of course, this opt-in should be explained to the user what changes and why it's better, why it's less privacy and etc. So
this would be more about client implementers, and then maybe the status app would choose to expose such options. But it could also, I mean, it's more a matter of sort of status client. So for example, like BitTorrent, they introduced DHT support and all clients pretty much implemented it because it was useful. And then you added like a private field to have private trackers and local peer discovery and these types of things. And it's like enhancements, but it's up to each client how do you want to deal with it. And most clients will likely expose it in some way if you want to use DHT, and then there's all these considerations and so on. So but that in itself could be a local decision for the status app, and that would be separate from the protocol. So the idea is to think of them as two sort of separate animals, kind of. I don't know if Jacek has any insights or thoughts he would like to add to this.
Nothing new, really. I mean, we've talked before about enshrining the protocol into a separate entity, so that when you discuss a protocol change, you do so not from a code perspective and not with a code mentality, but rather with a protocol mentality. And I think we already agreed that moving the protocol out from the code base completely, including all these little quirks, would be the first step, and then developing the protocol based on that document, obviously with the reference implementation and so on, but like approaching it with this slightly more procedural approach, which includes these various steps that the EAPs and so on have, and PIPs and whatever, gives it the appropriate social weight, so that everybody's on the same page, and it also gives the community an opportunity to weigh in, especially if you consider that they might not be fluent in both Go, JavaScript, Clojure, and the rest of the technology stack that we happen to be using.
So maybe we could support a Java version. That would be a good option, because Java is a really clear written language and like mostly understood widely. So I'm volunteering myself updating Ethereum J to support New Whisper, and then to start writing a mail server or something like that. So, but I'm doing that in free time. So maybe this effort could help in the protocol definition, because having these implementations just make it rich.
Sorry to cut you off. Sorry to cut you off. I want to make sure we don't sort of stray too much into the protocol and these implementations and so on. I think going back to the topic with Whisper partitioning and so on, like what's the specific steps we want to do there? I think one is just roughly capturing the current protocol, and so these types of changes would have sort of carry more weight. So if there's going to be some kind of breaking compatibility or whatever, that it's sort of formatted in a way that's outside of the code base, for example, in the specs repository. Do people generally agree with that?
I think that the next step would be to make a swarm just to resolve this issue.
Yeah,
I mean,
so that's
we
probably
already
what
started.
protocol. It's just a question of sort of time frame, because we have this sort of semi-specified thing living in the app right now, and then there are certain core pressures that sort of means that some changes have to be made sooner rather than later. So it's a question of finding the balance between having, like, I don't know, protocol specification, like protocol specification, whatever, for everything, versus sort of making sure that the thing we already have in the app and doing graceful changes of that's sort of dealt with properly.
Yeah, I mean, there are a few things that we already started the second implementation in Go, which we're planning to have a separate repository sooner or later, and some documents, and it's already helped at least finding these issues with the JavaScript specific things in the protocol. So I hope we'll continue with that. Like Adam is working on this, but yeah, the question is, what we do in a short-ish term for this. So probably, the communicating better, that would be good from my side as well.
So can we, is there some way we could have some kind of proposal for how to deal with it on a more device-to-device basis, like what the path to that looks like, and how we think that the last breaking change or whatever we make will be compatible with changing the transport completely? That's one thing. And another thing is if there is some creative solution we can do right now to reduce bandwidth, for example, by not send whatever.
Would it be hard to revert this breaking change if a creative solution is found?
Sorry, say again.
Would it be hard to revert the breaking change if this creative solution is found, so that we can go back to being compatible with the older versions?
I guess we always listen to the discovery topic anyway. So if there is some new client that goes back again to using this single topic, it's it will work by default, as I understand. It costs nothing to listen to these topics, or that right now it costs nothing because we use it for other things as well. So if there will be private messages to me in these topics, they will be, or whatever topic they will be still, I guess it will work. So yeah, if anything, but we delayed it by just flipping the flag right now. So it's not a huge amount of.
So when supporting the older version, maybe we can inform the user that supporting it would cause more data usage, and then it could show the list of users that are using this older protocol, and maybe you can ask them to update so you don't have to listen to
that. Igor and Andrea, do you think from course point of view, like, do you have any thoughts on like how to progress, given that you want to reduce bandwidth and so on?
Personally, I think, at the moment we have some fairly big issue with reliability. So adding device to device, essentially communication, not sure is a good idea. That's the thing, like until we iron out the outstanding issues, it's just a bit dangerous, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And it's not that we have a pressing need to fix this partitioning topic like this week or something, but with more users, it gets more and more pressing. So it's just it's not that the current solution doesn't work; it's just not scalable. So maybe we have some time to rethink it, to give it a bit more of a thought. But maybe we can.
Let's rethink it. We can have bring us up the next code of call as well. See if we have progressed in some dimension.
Yeah, coming back a little bit to the user, letting the user choose. I generally would consider that as fairly dangerous because, or like from a security point of view, that tends to be a bad way to deal with it. One creative idea is to establish much longer time horizons on how fast these things change, so that the community has time to critique and review the change that's coming. And then, like, it's a little bit similar. If you look at ETH2, what we're doing there is basically, they call this the weak subjectivity, which is a way to deal with long-range attacks. And the working theory is here that if somebody does something obviously bad, then over a long period of time, it's socially feasible to overcome this, say years or a year, months, whatever, like, but a fairly long period where the bad behavior has time to establish itself and therefore will be known through outside means. So if we can, but what that leads to basically is that the app needs to be able to support multiple protocols over extended periods of time. And then the way to upgrade would, well, maybe we can hide an advanced option somewhere, right? But so that people can start trying these things, these new, more efficient protocols, for example. But then also keep in mind when we develop things that the overlap horizon or the overlap period should be considered to be fairly long, and we should be able to provide a safer default for the user, and then maybe switch that default and so on, as a way out from really bad decisions. I mean, we do have the advantage that we're open and the code can be audited and so on. But then we also need this very long period of time for the information to seep out and sort of, in case the code becomes tainted somehow, that there's time for this taint problem to become known, even for people that are maybe not online all the time, or like, that they know what kind of time horizons we're looking at when we make these changes, when they start using the app. So basically, I know that, all right, if I start using Status today, I know that for the next 6 months, nothing is going to change with the protocol, and so on.
So what do you think is the reasonable time horizon for this kind of changes? For instance, if we still do partitioning topic, it will still break compatibility, but let's say we do not like one release, but we do like 6 releases or something before we actually activate it. So it means that the last 6 releases, and 6 releases means 3 months or something, already support this. So if you have a version that's older than 3 months, and we're talking about beta right now, so we are in beta. So is it like fine? So we implement it like right now, listening to these topics, and then we implement some kind of maybe like duplication of messages or something like this. So the old clients work, and then like in 3 months or something, we just disable it. And if you have like older than 3 months worth of application, then
well, the time period is sort of a product decision maybe that needs a little bit of thought. But the principle here is that when I start using the app, I would know that the guarantee will be upheld for this period of time. So I would also know how often I need to check whether something has changed. And generally, like, I think the period should be fairly long, as in more than 3 months. But, that's really, I don't have the data to say that, and maybe there's some way to figure that out, or weigh things, weigh the various parameters. In ETH2, we're looking at half year probably at least, and then we'll see. But it still even hasn't been discussed there because of the rather serious security sort of consequences if you do the wrong thing here.
By default, 6 months seems reasonable to me. It's what a lot of distros have as well. unless there's any very strong arguments for either longer or shorter. Let's take it for another round and we can discuss async and people can think on their own, and then let's bring it up in the next Codev call. And then we can move on. Does that sound good to people? Or is there something else people want to say?
Yeah, it's difficult to kind of measure that kind of, like, we cannot enforce this. This should be only a suggestion, because if there is a problem that is just making things not work, it should be just change it sooner than possible. So yeah, that would be.
I guess my question is, how many people are actually using Status outside of Status as a company? Because if it's, I don't know, another 100% or 50%, is it really worth making the change that much more difficult right now while in beta? I don't know if we even have a metrics on how many actual users there are if we subtract status contributors.
I don't think that matters. I think it's about establishing what status is in order to attract users. And if we go about thinking like, oh, we only have 100 users, so we're going to break it, that's not the kind of reputation I think you necessarily want to have. Like, we're making a stand here, basically.
And my point is, depending on how much work you want to put into the stand, maybe it's better to just do the change without worrying as much. But that's my 5 cents.
Anyone else has anything to add before we move on?
Just 2 cents from test team, who actually using status very intensively. I don't know if I can survive for 6 more months without reliable messaging, to be honest. And I'm not sure that we will have a good reputation in eyes of users because we don't change protocol, but we're still not reliable in messaging. That's, yeah, a bit of a fault.
I think this is more about
Yeah, what I was going to say is that the partition topic thing, it does not increase reliability at all.
It's purely bandwidth privacy.
Yeah, which is also a thing that can affect how people view status. If we're getting gigabytes of mobile data taken by our app, that also affects how we are viewed. So it's a tough decision, I guess.
Yeah, I might be wrong with telling that it's a problem of reliability, but in general, if it will help to reduce issues with status, with messaging and status, with getting the history of, I don't know, 100 chats if I'm back after 1 day of not using status, and it does not crash my mobile app, yeah, it would be great. But again, it's like reality things that, yeah, we can say that we are good because we don't change protocol, but in the same time, maybe we need to be a bit, I don't know, look for other ways to be more realistic, to please our users in a way that, you know, features are good, messaging is reliable, app does not crash because of too much data, and so on. But again, I understand that we need to build solid principles and culture right now. In the same time, as a user, I'm not, yeah, I will not be using this app if it will behave like this.
Yeah, also to add to that, like changing the whole reason why we're actually partitioning the topic is that currently we're a bit limited by, as pointed out, the amount of data that we fetch. And so, like, therefore, we only fetch the last 24 hours of data. So if you've been offline for more than 24 hours, you will miss messages. So although it's true that it doesn't affect reliability in the terms of, like, you know, like no more messages are going to be dropped by the transport layer than before. If you can extend that period to 7 days, 14, whatever, and we can only do that if the amount of data is manageable, there will be an impact on reliability with that aspect.
So I would suggest we move on. I think this requires maybe more thought. Maybe we could put together some different proposals and that have sort of pros and cons and trade-offs, and then we can bring it up in next CoreDev call. Because I think there's several ideas that they go against each other, but they might need to be fleshed out a bit more, whether it's sort of the time frame for compatibility or if we do a breaking change, then are we sure we have a path to upgradability? Is there some way we can limit the scope by creative solutions and so on? I think there's multiple options here that we can explore, but it probably requires asynchronous effort.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just wanted to know who we should talk with to discuss this later on.
So I imagine Core might want to do a few more runs on the post-mortem or whatever you want to call it, pre-mortem, I don't know what you want to call it. And then we can bring it up next CoreDev call, and we can also bring it up in a protocol call if that's interesting. But I think first it has to be some kind of...
So basically use the discuss post in this meeting.
Yeah, I think the discussion is a good starting point, and then we'll figure out from there. Because it's already a discussion started, so there is no point to switch it somewhere else.
All right, cool. So we have maybe 20 more minutes. So Ricardo, you had a brief announcement on topic democracy.
Yeah, so tomorrow there is a meeting in the status agenda that I'm going to present the swarm, what is the idea that is being developed in topic democracy, basically how it works and why it works like this. And so if you are interested in democracy and decentralized autonomous organizations, and this can be used in many creative ways once it's created. So might be interesting to many people.
Cool. And then Pedro, you want to talk briefly about exposing status quo as a Nix package?
Yeah, so I think this is the next logical step in terms of having reproducible builds. Right now we host status quo artifacts in DigitalOcean, so it's kind of a hand-rolled solution, which really isn't required now that we host a Nix cache. So we could just make status quo another Nix package, and ideally also make the same approach that we took for status React, do the same thing on status quo, so that people can just go do make setup and Nix takes care of all the dependencies. And then that produces a Nix package, which is uploaded to the Nix cache that we host. And then that's what we use in status React. So no more downloads during the build that are handled by us. It's a matter of consistency with all the other packages. I don't know if there's anything against this, or if it's like logical for everyone. I don't know.
Sounds great.
It might be like for people who are working daily on status quo. That's maybe the people who will be more impacted by this. So it would just require that you do make shell and ensure that you're inside of this special shell from Nix to build your app. But it's not a big deal. You know, from the experience with Status React, it's not a deal breaker. But I would be interested in hearing if there are anything against going forward with this.
Just one question. Is there, so when we publish a new version, it's just get auto-published immediately, or how does it work? Because right now we publish it just on GitHub, for instance, and it's like there is no approval process, nothing like this. And if we add it to the Nix as a new version?
Well, in the recipe, so Status React, it has these Nix files. So you would determine there basically in the same way where we change status go version file in status react. Instead of doing it there, you would do inside the Nix recipe saying, okay, I want to use this hash of status go. And then it would either build it or download from the cache, but it would do so in a reproducible way.
Okay, so we are not dependent on anything. So it will build it in case this cache doesn't exist this hash doesn't exist in the cache. Okay, so it also solves the issue with your local builds, right?
Yeah, if you want to test your special branch in status go, then it makes it easier also.
Then I don't see any reason not to do it, frankly. Just
okay, cool. Okay, so if there's no more input on this, I'll move forward.
Awesome. Chaos Unicorn update. Maybe Anna or Igor, do you want to take the things from the app point of view?
Yeah, I can. If you can hear me, probably yes. So we have the last change to be integrated, at least for mobile app. Unfortunately, for desktop, I will need Vitaly's help to talk about the progress there, because again, we have desktop used to communicate and mobile. So for mobile, we almost ready. For desktop, honestly, I'm not sure yet. So if Vitaly is on the meeting, please tell about it. If not, then probably we'll need to sync right after this. But again, for desktop, it's a bit easier because they don't need any Apple approval process in test flight, etc. So they can, they do have a bit more time to make a release.
Sorry. No, it's also fine. Like if it's not working right, that's something that people can hack on during the day, or just mobile for the day. So it's not a deal breaker.
I'm afraid that if you don't have possibility to add custom boot node or mail server, you will not be able to hack a lot in desktop in that day. But yeah. So
no, I mean that during the day, then people can add that if that's
yeah. Let's see. So yeah, it will be like there will be couple of very basic warning, several unicorns shown to you in pop-up with the details button that goes to that blog post from you, Oscar. I feel like we will need a bit more simple user-oriented messaging. Like, okay, you will not be able to send transaction. You will have internal server error. You will not see transaction history and blah blah blah. But in general, yeah. Also, after we add the last change to mobile app, as Adam suggested, we but we will test also on staging fleet just to have complete end-to-end scenario on in a play and see that actually it works without affecting beta fleet, so without affecting our users who use releases and nightlies. And that's actually it. Again, it's one day, so yeah, it will be a bit ugly. I mean, this pop-up warning, and yeah, it will give you a feeling on what is a world without centralized services, and how you can deal with this, and what you can do to actually make it work in any way. So yeah, let's see. If Igor, if you want to add something, or Vitaly, please do.
Yeah, I had a proposal that since we wanted to discuss it on Friday, but since Oscar is here and everyone is here, I want to give a proposal that we start this Unicorn Day not at midnight, but at some time a bit later than this, when most of the contributors are woken up, at least maybe 8 or 9 Central European time, and to start the Unicorn Day from there, just to because the first few hours would be the most.
The proposal is 9 a.m. to UTC.
It's 9 a.m. I thought it's 0. It was like midnight.
It was 2. Sorry, I wrote 2 times. That's silly.
Okay. If it's 9 a.m. UTC, then it's perfect. Yeah, it's it's just midnight is whatever.
I wrote 2 times for whatever reason. Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, so it's 9 UTC. Then it's okay if it will be coordinated. It's 9 UTC. Then it's perfect.
I just want to check. So is it correct that even if you're using an old version, because the cluster will be shut down in such a way that it still won't work, so people can't cheat by using an old version? Is that correct?
In Fura, no. They will be able.
In Fura, yes. Sorry, I meant
the cluster should be just shut down. Yeah, I think.
Cool.
It's
okay, cool. Just want to make sure.
Jakob, but I think it's like this.
All right, cool. And then there's some awesome guides by Bruno and Chuck, and maybe some others as well, on how to run your node. So if you don't have anything to do during the weekend or on Monday, you can set it up as well. Anyone have anything else on Chaos Unicorn? Right, cool. So let's see, what was... We had something else. I lost the tab. 1 second. Right. So just super briefly, quick follow-up on the better pull request process. So we had a call, it was 4 or 6 weeks ago. So the first question is just, do people feel like, are things better? Is it different? Or yeah, what's the general impression?
I'm liking it. It's been very meaningful, I think, and useful.
Cool. Anyone else?
Yeah,
or has it been worse in some? Yeah.
I can tell from testing perspective. So we still don't have this separate column for ready for auto tests or whatever. Probably just because the Nix PR was too big, and Pedro and Anton need to work together on this. I've pinged several times Anton, but I still don't see this column. And again, I'm not sure, Pedro, if you can shed some light on this, because right now it's not practical to expect that on review stage we will have auto tests run. Again, because of different reasons, I don't want to count them right now, but actually it's not happening. So we have review column, we were expecting that auto tests will be run there, they don't. So actually test team right now manually runs them for each PR. That is, yeah.
Yeah, I remember there was an issue. Unfortunately, it's been like 3 or 4 weeks since I last touched that, so I don't recall the exact reasons. But yeah, there's a lot of situations which can go wrong in triggering that. But basically, I'll need to set up some time to look into it again and figure out what was the issue.
Oh, but by the way, I think we just were trying to find someone who can add this separate extra step or separate column for ready for auto tests. And probably it was only Oscar who has rights. I don't recall.
Oh, wait. I can add that. You want to call them in the pipeline for QA?
Yes.
Okay. I think there should be a bunch of people. Igor, I can add it now, but I think Igor and Jacob should also have permissions. Let me add it now. Could you message me what you wanted?
Okay. Yeah, I will just let me also think with Pedro that it was the final solution, because I remember there was like a step where I just
okay.
I stopped following.
Yeah. And then we also need to customize that column name in status React in the .github directory. But at least the means to do it is already in place.
So yeah, if you block just PM me, I think that Igor, Jacob, and I should all have permissions for this. But yeah, just PM me.
That I have permissions.
I think so. Maybe not. I'm not sure how the admins things work on GitHub. I'm not sure. Okay, and then I guess there was some brief. Maybe if there's some brief follow-up or comment on the projects. Both Andrea and Anton mentioned it in the PM thread, but just for other people, do you want to briefly mention the sort of state of that research and like possible next steps?
I can do so. I looked into basically being able to test the app without, like essentially all the UI code. So it is technically possible. You will need two separate processes completely, because the reframe database is like a single one. And, we definitely want to test some of the reframe logic because it's the most complex. You would need to basically detach everything, from components, from the UI components. At the moment, it's a bit coupled. And so that requires a bit of refactoring. After that, you are able to run the two processes inside a Docker container. And so that's basically what I got. It is possible. At the moment, like I haven't separated the components, and therefore it's like the resulting Docker images, at least, like the Docker, not Docker image, but just the X file is 400 megabytes, just big. But that's because all the UI dependencies are pulled in. You can do that, and on top of that, you will need something of a testing framework, essentially, and run 2 instances of this, and then checking the results. So it requires considerable effort. At the moment, I don't really have the bandwidth to explore any further. I don't think the investment of time. Yeah.
Do you think it's something for the core backlog, or does it make sense to make like a big bounty of it if someone figures out a way to?
I mean, if there's a bounty, like it's not something that is so critical. I mean, even if it doesn't work perfectly, it's fine. So like, if it's definitely bounty material, whether someone will, be able to do it, it's different. But I mean, by all means.
Do you think you could write it up in a GitHub issue and then we can put the bounty on it?
Yeah, I can do. Yeah, it's a good idea.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the idea of separating logic and views as much as possible would help a lot with that, right? Because then we won't need views at all. You could just do with subscriptions and dispatch, right?
Yes, definitely. I mean, it's definitely like I don't know if that is all we need, but it's definitely something that we definitely need.
Yeah, we can. I think if we make a bounty, then we can. Maybe there's certain things we can factor out, like there's some refactoring task if that's seen as a blocker or whatever, and then we can see what other contributors, what magic they can work, and then we can maybe bring it up in general core calls or core dev call later. All right, Anton, do you have anything you want to say on the automated testing side of things?
I will replace Anton. He's not in the call, but he updated me.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically iOS testing is ready. It can be run locally, but there is issue with our South Lab provider, where we run our tests like for PRs, for nightlies, etc. And it doesn't work there. There is extensive description. Like, what is the problem? Basically, it starts, the launching up takes like 8 minutes or so. and it's unusable in this state. So we waiting for customer support from South Labs to solve this issue, and it's almost like 2 weeks they are looking at it. It's basically
did we ping them, and also does anyone else have this problem?
The problem is that it's only for status app. There are
okay.
Other app, it works fine. So there is something specific to our app, and they don't tell what is exactly the problem, but they say, yeah, we're looking into it. Our dev team is looking into it. It's not like some customer support guy, playing these rounds of checklist they have. It's really like already moved to the dev team, and dev team doesn't give any clue on what it is and when it will be fixed, etc. So it was March 12th. Now it's it's not like exactly 2 weeks, but almost 2 weeks. We are waiting for them.
Did we look into possible alternatives to South Labs as well?
Yeah, actually, Anton is looking again. We are waiting for this, but meanwhile, he also was looking into what we can do in other providers like BrowserStack, for example. But it will again take some time to migrate there. So, but it's we prefer to get the final answer from the dev team before actually moving somewhere.
Okay, awesome. This might also be a good topic for discuss, because I think there's probably people within status community that have experience with this setup as well and might have some ideas.
Okay, I will share.
Anything else on that? Great, thanks. Anything else on PR process? All right. Any quick announcements before we end this call?
If you're European, call your MPs to vote against Article 13 tomorrow.
Right, cool.
If you just for those of us who are not in Europe, could you post something in Watercooler or something that explains what that is?
Yeah, that would be great. I pasted something. And then if you want, I would please feel free to rate this call on a scale from 1 to 10 with any comments on how it could be improved, and post it in status core devs. If there's nothing else, I think we can finish this up. Right, cool. Thanks everyone for joining, and see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
All right, see you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.